Have you ever felt it? That quiet, gnawing feeling in your gut when someone else gets what you wanted? When they get the promotion, the praise, the recognition, the life that you thought should have been yours. That's jealousy. And let's be honest, it's not just a petty emotion. It's a silent poison. Most people underestimate it. They laugh it off or try to hide it. But jealousy has burned down friendships, ruined marriages, and torn families apart. It's the reason some people silently root for others to fail. It's why someone you trust can turn cold without warning. Why smiles sometimes hide resentment. And here's the dangerous part. When you ignore jealousy, when you pretend it's not there, it doesn't disappear. It festers. It grows in the dark. And sooner or later, it blinds your judgment and drives your actions. Think about it. How many betrayals, how many cruel words, how many irrational decisions in your life, either by you or someone else, can be traced back to that one feeling? They have what I want, and I don't. But here's where we stop the spiral, because there is another way. And it comes not from suppression, not from denial, but from mastery. The ancient Stoics, men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca, understood this long before psychology gave it a name. They didn't pretend jealousy wasn't real. Instead, they faced it, directly, intentionally. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors. Be content with what you are, and wish not to be anything else." This wasn't just philosophy. It was a method for inner liberation. Because the truth is, you can't always control what other people have. You can't always get the spotlight, the praise, the money, or the love that someone else receives. They believed in transforming them. They knew that envy, anger, fear, all of it was part of being human. But they also believed that we don't have to be ruled by them. Seneca wrote, "No man is crushed by misfortune unless he has first been deceived by prosperity." And jealousy is that deception. It whispers that someone else's win is your loss, that the world is a zero-sum game, that their light somehow dims yours. But it's a lie. In truth, someone else's success doesn't rob you. It reveals what's possible. Their strength isn't a threat. It's a mirror, showing you what you're capable of becoming. And here's where the Stoic shift happens. You stop looking outward, and you start looking inward. You stop blaming the world, and you start building your own. You stop competing in someone else's race, and you begin walking your own path, with clarity, discipline, and peace. So let me ask you, seriously, who right now stirs jealousy in your heart? What is that emotion trying to tell you? And are you ready to face it? Because if you are, then this video is for you, not to shame you, not to lecture you, but to guide you back to yourself, to the calm center the Stoics called ataraxia, a state of unshakable peace. Together, we're going to break down how jealousy works, how it shows up in your daily life, how it manipulates your thinking without you even noticing, and more importantly, how to free yourself from it. This isn't about pretending to be a monk. It's about being master of your own mind in a chaotic world. So take a deep breath. This is the beginning of something different. A journey not of rage or resentment, but of reason, self-mastery, and quiet power. Because when you conquer jealousy, you don't just protect your relationships, you reclaim your inner freedom. And that, my friend, is the kind of power no one can take away. Let's begin. Step 1. Admit it exists. That's right. Jealousy. And before you click away or shake your head and think, "That's not me," pause. Because this is where most people lose the battle before it even begins. You see, jealousy is not just a weak emotion. It's not something only petty or insecure people feel. In fact, the more you deny it, the more power it gains over you. Let's get real. Jealousy is primal. It's baked into our biology, an ancient emotional alarm system designed to keep us from being replaced, from losing status, affection, or social standing. Thousands of years ago, being outshined could mean being exiled, and being exiled could mean death. So the mind learned to react quickly. I must be better than them. I must be the favorite. I must not be forgotten. Fast forward to today, and the stakes have changed, but the wiring, still there. And yet, here we are, living in a culture where people pretend they're above it, where jealousy is seen as embarrassing, immature, or shameful. So what do? We hide it. We package it up in sarcasm. We bury it under fake compliments. We convince ourselves that we're not jealous, just honest, or just critical, or just being real. But jealousy doesn't go away just because you pretend it's not there. It grows in the shadows. It whispers lies in your ear. It says, your partner might leave you for someone better. That friend isn't really happy for you. They got the life you wanted, and you'll never catch up. It's subtle, it's sneaky, and over time, it becomes your worldview. That's how friendships dissolve without clear reason. That's how marriages erode, slowly, silently, with suspicion and resentment. That's how teams fall apart, careers get sabotaged, and trust turns toxic. Not because people are evil, but because they never admitted what they were really feeling in the first place. Let me ask you this. Have you ever celebrated someone else's success out loud, but deep down, you wished it was you instead? Have you ever scrolled past someone's perfect life on social media and felt that knot in your stomach? The one that says you're behind, you're not enough, you're missing out. That's jealousy. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you're human. And here's where the wisdom of Stoicism hits hard and deep. The Stoics didn't run from emotion. They examined it. They studied it. They used it as a mirror, not a monster. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, taught us that emotions are simply judgments. And every judgment can be challenged. So what does jealousy say about your judgment? It's not really about the other person, is it? It's about what you believe their success means about you. It's about where your confidence is shaky. It's about the gap between your current self and your ideal self, and how loudly that gap is screaming. But here's the powerful Stoic shift. You don't have to judge yourself for feeling jealousy. You just have to acknowledge it. Think of jealousy like a warning light on your car dashboard. You wouldn't smash the light or ignore it completely. You'd pop the hood. You'd check what needs attention. You'd fix the issue before it wrecks your whole engine. That's exactly what admitting jealousy does. It brings the emotion out of the dark. It puts you back in control. Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "He who envies others does not obtain peace of mind." And peace of mind is what we're really after, isn't it? Because without peace, all the success in the world means nothing. Without peace, even love feels like a threat. Without peace, someone else's joy feels like your failure. So step one isn't about fixing jealousy or getting rid of it instantly. It's about facing it, calmly, courageously, and with curiosity. Instead of saying, "I shouldn't feel this way," try asking, What part of me is afraid right now? What belief is telling me I'm not enough? What comparison am I clinging to that's keeping me miserable? You see, when jealousy speaks, it often says, "You're losing." But when you respond with stoic awareness, you realize there's nothing to lose, because no one can take what's truly yours. Your worth isn't measured by someone else's journey. Your timeline doesn't have to match theirs, and your peace, your inner fortress, is yours to build moment by moment. So the next time jealousy creeps in, don't run. Don't shame yourself. Just look it in the eye. Because what you name, you can tame. And what you tame, you can transform. The Stoics believe that true freedom doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from mastering yourself. And that mastery begins here, with honesty, with humility, with the quiet courage to say, "Yes, I feel it, but it doesn't have to own me." That's the first step toward freedom. That's the first step toward peace. And that's where your transformation begins. So, are you willing to admit what's been hiding in the corners of your mind? Because once you do, jealousy loses its grip, and you take the first step toward a life lived not in comparison, but in clarity. Let's keep going. Step 2. Control the narrative. Let's say you're out with a friend, and they suddenly check their phone and start laughing. Instantly, your brain kicks in. Are they laughing at me? Did they just get a message from someone else? Is something going on I don't know about? Sound familiar? That's jealousy, hijacking your story. You see, here's what most people never realize. Jealousy doesn't just show up as an emotion. It writes entire narratives in your head, fast, vivid, and often completely false. Your partner comes home late. Maybe it's traffic. But jealousy whispers, "What if they're seeing someone else?" Your coworker gets praised at the meeting. It could be well-deserved. But jealousy says, "They're trying to replace you." Your friend didn't reply to your text for 3 days. Maybe they're just overwhelmed. But jealousy paints a picture of betrayal. And the more vivid the story, the more you believe it. Here's the danger. Once that narrative starts playing in your mind, your brain begins searching for proof to back it up. Every little action becomes evidence. Every silence becomes suspicion. Every coincidence becomes a conspiracy. That's how a simple thought turns into obsession. That's how trust dissolves. That's how we push people away, not because of what they've done, but because of what we've imagined. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, said it best. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Think about that. It's not reality that tortures us. It's the story we tell ourselves about reality. Jealousy thrives in that gap between what actually happened and what you think happened. So how do we fight back? We do what the Stoics trained themselves to do. We pause. We question. We break the narrative. Imagine you're watching a movie. Halfway through, things start getting intense. The hero is betrayed. The villain seems to be winning. You start to panic. But then someone tells you, "Wait, that's not the real ending. You're watching a trailer. The full story hasn't played out yet." That's your mind on jealousy. It reacts to a few disconnected scenes and assumes the worst possible outcome. The Stoic practice is to interrupt that process. Here's how. 1. Pause the spiral. The moment your mind starts spinning wild stories, stop. Take a breath. Literally, remind yourself, this is just a thought, not a fact. 2. Ask yourself, is it true? Not could it be true, but is it true? What actual evidence do I have? not interpretations, not assumptions, not fears, facts. 3. Separate insecurity from reality. Is this about what's happening now, or about a past wound that's been triggered? Sometimes what we call intuition is actually unhealed trauma trying to protect us. 4. Choose a better story. If your mind is going to write narratives anyway, give it a better script. Instead of, "They're ignoring me because they don't care," try, "They may be overwhelmed. I'll check in with clarity, not accusation." Instead of, "They got ahead because life is unfair," try, "Good for them. My journey is different, and that's okay." That's not delusion. That's emotional responsibility. It's refusing to let your mind hold you hostage. Now, let me give you a personal example. A few years ago, I had a close friend who suddenly started spending less time with me. I noticed he was posting photos with new people, laughing, traveling, thriving, and my mind, oh, it had a field day. He's replaced you. You were never that important to him. See? You're not worth staying close to. But then I did what the Stoics taught me. I stopped. I asked, "Is that true?" I reached out, not with bitterness, but curiosity. And what did I find? He was going through a tough time. He'd been burned out, overcommitted, and avoiding everyone, not just me. And the new friends. A support group he'd joined for mental health. I nearly ruined a friendship because I believed a story that never existed. That's how dangerous jealousy's narrative can be. It's like a fire. You either feed it with fear or starve it with reason. And here's the truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. When jealousy speaks, you don't have to obey. You can challenge it. You can question it. You can choose peace over paranoia. That's Stoic power. That's mental clarity. That's emotional freedom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." So ask yourself, what narrative has jealousy written for you lately? What story are you living in that's based on fear, not fact? And are you ready to rewrite it? Because once you do, you stop suffering twice. Once in reality, and again in your mind. And in that space of clarity, that's where trust grows. That's where relationships heal. That's where you become unshakable. Let's keep going. Step 3. Respond with calm, not fire. You feel it rise. That tightness in your chest. The heat behind your eyes. The tension in your jaw. Jealousy has just struck. And now, anger is its messenger. Maybe your partner liked someone's photo. Maybe your coworker got praised again. Maybe a friend forgot to invite you to something important. And your instinct, to bite back, to lash out, to say something, anything, that defends your pride. You might not yell. Maybe it comes out as sarcasm, a sharp joke, a cold remark, a passive-aggressive text. But it lands like fire, and fire spreads fast. See, here's what we often forget. Anger feels powerful, but it rarely is. It feels like strength, like taking control. But most of the time, it's just fear, dressed up in louder clothes. Think about it. What really fuels jealousy-driven anger? It's not hatred. It's not confidence. It's insecurity. It's fear. Fear of being replaced. Fear of not being enough. Fear that someone else has what you've quietly craved, and now you're being left behind. So we react, we accuse, we confront, we corner the people we love, not because they're the enemy, but because our pride has confused fear with truth. And what happens? Instead of clarity, we get conflict. Instead of connection, we build walls. Instead of healing, we create hurt. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "How much more harmful are the consequences of anger than the causes of it?" Read that again. It's not what triggered you that does the most damage. It's what you do with that anger that wrecks your peace and your relationships. Because here's the brutal reality. One sarcastic comment can linger longer than you think. One impulsive accusation can change the way someone sees you, permanently. One moment of pride-fueled heat can undo years of trust. So what do the Stoics teach us? They teach us to respond, not react, to breathe before we break, to lead, not with pride, but with calm clarity. Let me paint a different picture. Imagine something sparks jealousy in you. Instead of exploding, you pause. You notice the tension. You name the feeling, not to shame yourself, but to claim it. You say to yourself, "This isn't strength. This is fear, and fear doesn't get to speak for me." That right there is Stoic courage. Because Stoicism isn't about bottling your feelings or pretending to be cold. It's about owning your emotions without letting them own you. It's the courage to say, "I'm hurt," instead of "you're wrong." It's the discipline to speak plainly instead of punishing with silence or spite. It's the maturity to protect the relationship, not your ego. Let me share something personal. Years ago, someone I deeply cared about started spending more time with someone else. I felt replaced, invisible, like I was slowly becoming irrelevant in their life. My first instinct, anger. I wanted to call them out, make them feel guilty, say something that would sting the way I was hurting. But I remembered a Stoic teaching I'd written down. Don't allow your hurt pride to speak for your heart. So instead of reacting, I paused. I asked myself, is this really about them? Or is this about my fear of being forgotten? And when I finally spoke, I said something simple, honest, and calm. "Hey, I've noticed some distance lately, and I think it's triggering some stuff in me. I'd love to talk about it, not to blame you, but to understand what's going on." That conversation didn't just avoid a blow-up, it strengthened the bond, because I led with clarity, not chaos, with truth, not theatrics. That's the power of calm. That's the Stoic edge. It's what turns jealousy from a wrecking ball into a teacher. It's what stops conflict before it ever starts. It's what protects peace, not just in your relationships, but in your soul. And yes, it's hard, especially when your pride is screaming for revenge, or your fear is begging for control. But here's a question worth asking. Do you want to win the argument, or keep the connection? Because often, when you react with fire, you burn the very bridge you were trying to cross. So the next time jealousy knocks and your emotions start to boil, try this. Breathe. Ask, what part of me feels threatened right now? Then respond, not as someone who's trying to prove a point, but as someone who values peace over pride. Remember, calm is not weakness. Calm is control. Calm is power. Calm is the difference between reacting like a flame or rising like the mountain above it. So I ask you, what would your relationships look like if you spoke from strength, not from fear? What healing might begin if your next words weren't sharp, but sincere? Because every moment is a choice. And Stoicism reminds us that the wisest choice is not the loudest. It's the one rooted in reason, respect, and resilience. Step 4. Set boundaries without violence. Here's something most people don't talk about. Jealousy doesn't just reveal how you feel about others. It exposes how you feel about yourself. It points to a deeper truth. You can't be jealous without also realizing where your boundaries are missing or being ignored. Let me explain. Have you ever found yourself feeling jealous, not just because of what someone did, but because deep down, you knew you never told them what you needed, because you never made it clear what was okay and what wasn't? That's the quiet trap of silence. See, when you don't define your boundaries, people will assume you don't have any. And what starts as discomfort becomes resentment. Resentment you never voiced. Resentment you never clarified. And slowly, it starts to eat away at trust, not just in others, but in yourself. You start asking, why do they keep doing this? But the deeper question is, why haven't I told them to stop? Jealousy, in that sense, becomes a wake-up call. It tells you that your limits have been crossed, or worse, that they were never even set in the first place. And this is where so many of us go wrong. Instead of setting boundaries with calm and clarity, we wait until we're angry. We explode. We issue ultimatums. We say things like, if you ever do that again, we're done. But that's not a boundary. That's emotional warfare. That's not self-respect. That's damage control. Because boundaries shouted in rage are rarely respected. They don't build connection. They build fear. And fear doesn't lead to healthy relationships. It leads to control, silence, and distance. So what do we do instead? We follow the Stoic way. Seneca taught that a wise person should always be able to walk away, not out of pride, but out of principle. And Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. True boundaries don't come from controlling others. They come from knowing yourself and respecting yourself enough to act accordingly. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're in a relationship and your partner keeps crossing a line. Maybe they flirt with others in a way that makes you uncomfortable. You feel it, that burning in your chest, that jealousy rising. You could scream, you could accuse, you could say something cutting in the heat of the moment. But what would that change? The Stoic approach would be this. You pause. You reflect. Why is this bothering me? What fear is being triggered? What value of mine is being disrespected? Then you speak, not from emotion but from clarity. You say something like, I want to be honest. When that happened, I felt uncomfortable. It touched a boundary for me. I value loyalty and emotional safety, and I need to know we're both honoring that moving forward. That's it. No threat, no drama, no fire, just truth, spoken with steadiness. And then you hold the line, because boundaries mean nothing if you don't enforce them. You don't need to scream to be taken seriously. You need to be consistent. People will test your limits, not always maliciously, sometimes simply because they don't know where your lines are. That's why clarity matters more than volume. One of the most stoic things you can do is say, this is my boundary. I'm not going to beg you to respect it, but I am going to walk away if it keeps being crossed. That's not harsh. That's healthy. Because walking away isn't always an act of anger. Sometimes, it's an act of deep self-love. Now here's the beautiful paradox. When you calmly set boundaries, not only do you protect yourself, you often invite deeper respect from others. People trust those who are clear. People respect those who respect themselves. And people feel safer with someone who knows where they stand. The Stoics understood this. They believed that the highest form of strength is not in dominating others, but in governing your own emotions and actions. So let me ask you, where in your life have you let jealousy fester because you didn't speak up? Where are you tolerating behaviors that betray your values because you're afraid of discomfort? And what would it look like to finally, calmly draw the line? You don't need to justify it. You don't need to explain it 20 times. You don't need to make someone agree. You just need to live it. Because boundaries are not about punishment. They're about peace. And when you start enforcing them with calm, respectful energy, something incredible happens. Jealousy fades. Self-respect grows. And the relationships that are meant to stay will adjust and thrive. And the ones that aren't, you'll be strong enough to let them go. Because a Stoic life isn't about controlling who stays. It's about controlling how you stay. With yourself. And if that means walking away from anything that disturbs your peace, so be it. So here's your reflection. What boundary have you been afraid to set? What fear has been keeping you quiet? And are you ready to trade that fear for freedom? Because when you finally speak with clarity and live with consistency, that's when your power returns. And from that place, jealousy no longer controls you. It guides you back to truth, back to dignity, back to the life you were meant to live. Let's move forward. Step 5. See the bigger picture. Jealousy is a thief. It doesn't just steal your peace. It narrows your world. It takes your wide, thoughtful perspective and shrinks it to the size of a single fear. I'm being threatened. And in that moment, nothing else matters. Not your values, not your long-term goals, not even the people you love. All that exists is the threat, the fear of losing, the urgency to protect what's yours. So what happens? You act without thinking. You say things you regret. You cross lines you swore you'd never cross. You check their phone. You throw out cruel words to win an argument. You lash out, not to understand, but to hurt. And all the while, your mind tells you, you're just protecting yourself. But are you? Or are you burning down your integrity to silence your insecurity? That's the real cost of jealousy. It tempts us to act in ways that betray who we truly are, just to gain momentary relief from fear. But relief is not peace, and reaction is not power. The Stoics knew this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That one sentence, it's everything. You see, you don't have power over what someone else chooses to do. You can't control who they admire, who they talk to, who they praise, who they're drawn to. But you do have power over your own mind, over how you interpret, how you respond, and most of all, how you choose to honor your character in the face of emotional storms. That's what it means to see the bigger picture. When jealousy strikes, it tries to convince you that the only thing that matters is right now. This moment of fear, this slight, this conversation, this win. But your life, your legacy, your integrity, Those are made up of every moment that came before and every moment that follows. And when you step back and ask, will this action still feel right a year from now? Am I acting from fear or from principle? If a camera recorded this moment, would I be proud of what I said, what I did, how I carried myself? That's when jealousy loses its grip. Because now, you're not just reacting, you're reflecting. You're not just protecting your pride, you're preserving your peace. Let me ask you something. Have you ever done something in jealousy that gave you short-term satisfaction, but left long-term damage? We all have. We've sent the angry message. We've made the jealous joke at the worst possible time. We've tried to prove a point, only to prove we weren't ready for peace. But here's what Stoicism teaches us. Your highest power is not in domination. It's in discipline. The real test of your character isn't how you act when everything is calm. It's how you hold your values when the storm rolls in. It's when you feel small, scared, or insecure, but still choose clarity over cruelty. Still choose boundaries over blame. Still choose to step back, breathe deep, and ask, what kind of person do I want to be in this moment? Because that's what real power looks like. Power is not yelling louder. Power is not accusing harder. Power is not winning the emotional war. Power is knowing you could say something hurtful and choosing silence instead. Power is knowing you could invade their privacy and choosing trust or detachment instead. Power is feeling the pull of impulse and choosing integrity anyway. That's the bigger picture. That's where growth lives. Let me share a quick story. A woman I knew once told me this. Her partner was charismatic, constantly surrounded by attention. And every time he connected with someone new, she felt that old familiar sting, jealousy. She almost ended the relationship more than once, not because he betrayed her, but because she was battling ghosts from her past. Then one day, she paused. She journaled. She asked herself, if I destroy this relationship, will I walk away proud of who I became? The answer was no. So she chose to talk, not accuse, to set clear expectations, not demands, to confront her fears instead of projecting them. And in doing that, something powerful happened. The relationship didn't just survive, it deepened, because she stopped reacting from fear and started leading with wisdom. And you can too. Here's the truth. Jealousy will come. It's human. It's part of the ride. But what you do with that jealousy, that's where your story is written. So the next time that wave crashes in, remember this. Step back. Zoom out. Ask if this moment is worth your character. Ask if the story you're writing is one of fear or of mastery. You don't need to prove your worth by tearing others down. You prove your worth by how you carry yourself when you're tempted to fall apart. That's what the Stoics lived for. That's what you're capable of too. So now the question is, will you be ruled by your worst moments, or will you rise above them? Because seeing the bigger picture isn't just about staying calm. It's about stepping into your higher self, especially when it's hardest to do. And that's when you realize, jealousy isn't a threat. It's an invitation to rise, to reflect, to lead. Let's make something clear. Jealousy isn't a petty emotion. It isn't something only immature people feel. And it's not something you can just ignore and hope it'll go away. Jealousy is real. It's human. And if left unchecked, it will erode the very foundations of your life. It can corrode the love you've built, the trust you've earned, and worst of all, the respect you have for yourself. But here's the part most people miss. Jealousy isn't your enemy. It's your opportunity. An opportunity to evolve, to lead yourself out of reaction and into reflection, to trade insecurity for insight. That's what the Stoics knew. And that's what you now know too. Because a Stoic doesn't pretend jealousy doesn't exist. They don't suppress it or act like they're above it. No. A Stoic meets it head-on with clarity, strength, and discipline. So let's recap the path we've walked together. Step 1. Admit it exists. Most people deny jealousy. They hide from it. But the truth is, what you refuse to face will always control you. You don't need to feel shame for having jealousy. You need to be honest enough to call it what it is. Step 2. Control the narrative. Jealousy will spin stories in your mind. False, fearful, convincing stories. It'll make you see betrayal where there's only silence. It'll make you imagine insults where there were none. And the moment you believe those stories without questioning them, they become your truth. So stop. Ask, is this real or is this fear? Stoicism is not about being numb. It's about being discerning. Step 3. Respond with calm, not fire. When you feel threatened, your pride will want to strike. But anger rarely heals. It only escalates. The strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It's the one who can hold their ground without losing their soul. Step 4. Set boundaries without violence. You are allowed to say, "That doesn't work for me." You are allowed to walk away when your peace is compromised. But a boundary set in rage becomes a wall. A boundary set with dignity becomes a bridge to either growth or a graceful exit. Step 5. See the bigger picture. In the heat of jealousy, your world shrinks. You become obsessed with one moment, one conversation, one glance. But your life is bigger than that. You are bigger than that. So zoom out. Ask, will this matter in a month? In a year? In the story I want to tell about who I am becoming? Because your character is not built in calm. It's forged in the fire. When emotions pull you to the edge, but you choose principle over pride. And now that we've walked through the truth, the pain, and the power of jealousy, there's only one thing left to do. Master it. Before it masters you. Because if you don't master jealousy, it will become your silent ruler. It will ruin your relationships, distort your judgment, and keep you chasing validation from the outside, while neglecting the fortress within. But if you do master it, you transform it. You turn jealousy into self-awareness. You turn triggers into tools. You turn fear into fuel for becoming more grounded, more self-assured, more you. The you who doesn't compete with others because you're too focused on your own journey. The you who doesn't lash out because you've learned to speak with clarity. The you who doesn't need control because you've built self-control. Marcus Aurelius, in all his wisdom, reminded us again and again, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's where the real victory is. Not in proving someone wrong, not in making them jealous back, not in playing the same emotional game. The real victory is when you rise so high in inner clarity. Jealousy can't touch you, because you've already chosen peace, because you've already chosen power, the kind that can't be shaken by anyone else's success, attention, or opinion. So here's my final question to you. Will you let jealousy dictate your next move? Or will you choose, right here and now, to lead yourself? Because every time you master jealousy, you become harder to offend, easier to love, and impossible to manipulate. You become untouchable, not because the world changes, but because you did. Now that's stoic. Now that's strength. And now, the journey is yours. If this message stirred something in you, if you're ready to live with more clarity, more discipline, and more self-respect, then this is your space. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your reflections in the comments. Tell me, what's one insight you're walking away with today? Let's keep building this stoic journey together. One breath, one principle, one powerful choice at a time. Until next time, be still, be strong, and be free.